Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we are learning Maseches Chullin Daf Yod Aleph. We're about 10, 12 lines down at Amar Abaye, and we're going to be learning until halfway down, or almost halfway down, on Daf Tes Vav Amud Aleph. Yeah, halfway down. We'll be together on Shabbos, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through Monday. I'm out of town. I'll ask Rabbi Handler to cover as much as possible. If there are nights where I can do Zoom, then I would do that. Just want to see how my travel works out. Obviously, Shavuot is Thursday night for sure. Wednesday night really just depends on my schedule. Okay. We're in the middle of a conversation here. We learned a cryptic Mishnah, and it's kedai to look back at the Mishnah at the top of Yud and Aleph. It said that if someone does shchita on Shabbos or Yom Kippur, that even though you're chayv kores, that shchita sukshera. Rav, in the open of the Gemara, says that you're not allowed to eat it on that day. And we're trying to figure out, like, where does that come from that you're not allowed to eat it on that day? So the Gemara says that all of this was in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda made this distinction that when it comes to, I shouldn't say he made a distinction, but the source of Rabbi Yehuda that seems to align with our Mishnah, that you're not allowed to eat the shechita that day, must come from a halacha. Rabbi Yehuda holds that if an animal wasn't unavailable before Shabbos, then you're not allowed to cut it up for dogs on Shabbos, even if it dies. So we see that it's eno min hamuchan. The fact that Rabbi Yehuda asers taking an animal that died after Shabbos started and feeding it to the klavim, that shows us that it's eno min hamuchan. So to by shchita, the animal was alive before Shabbos started, eno min hamuchan. You shechted it on Shabbos, and afal pi that you're mischayv benafsho, so the halach is shchita sukshir, but not that day. So maybe this is the din of Rabbi Yehuda. Amar le Abaye, absolutely not even close. Says the Gemara, midami hasam, in the case of the nevela and the klavim, meikara muchan la'adam, the original animal, when it was alive, namely the cow in this case, the goat, the sheep, whatever, what was that food for? It certainly wasn't for dogs. You don't feed dogs high quality ribs. You give them the cheap meat. They don't know the difference. You buy the Chullin meat from the store. You don't buy anything expensive. Meikara, that cow was muchan la'adam. The hashta, now that the animal died, it's muchan la'klavim. No, you're right that it was alive. You're right, and that's different than being dead. But the purpose of the food when it was alive was for Adam, and the purpose of a nevela is for a caliph. So the purpose changed. But hacha in our Mishnah, no. In our Mishnah, when the animal was alive, meikar muchan la'adam, and v'hashta muchan la'adam. So you can't tell me that the Rabbi Yehuda, by the case of nevela by klavim, is the maramakum for our Mishnah. It's not apples to apples, because in our Mishnah we're talking about meikar muchan la'adam, and at the end it's muchan la'adam. Ma'ashein kain, in the Mishnah that we learned 7 lines down, the Mishnah that we saw in Maseches Beitza, where we said that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't allow a nevela to be fed to the animals, that was muchan adam and then switched over to being muchan lebehema. So that's totally different. Says Rava, back to Abaye, mi sabris behema bechayel achila omedes. Hold on one second, Abaye. You've been presumptuous. If an animal is alive, you're assuming the animal was for the sake of eating? Perhaps that's not true. Perhaps the goal of this animal was not that you were going to make it into dinner, but rather, behema bechayeha legadel omedes. It's only meant to bear children. We know this. There are different kind of cows. There's a dairy farm. There's veal. And you feed the animals different things. You want it to have a better milk production. You give it beer. You want it, whatever the case may be. But if the animal is not le'achila, Rava pushes back on Abaye, then don't tell me that me'ikara, the cow was muchan la'adam. It's not muchan la'adam. Mecha tasted that this kind of cow you're going to eat. Yihachi, says the Gemara, brilliant question. Yihachi, if you're right that a behema is not le'achila, and really it is only bechayeha legadel omedes, then behema the Rabbi Yehuda biyomtov heichi shachtinan. Then we have a major issue, which is that according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that there's a problem of hachana, so then how can we ever have an animal that's muchan on yontif? If be'etzem, an animal is only there, it's behema bechayeha legadel omedes, it's only meant to have children, and then you shechted on yontif, it wasn't muchan. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the Mishnah doesn't stim. Why? Because our Mishnah says that shchita sok sheira. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, he would take a hold that it's aser to eat this animal because of hachana. Amar lo, Rava says, I acquiesce. You made a good point, Abaye. Really, omedes le'achila, omedes legadel. Really, the general purpose for cows is multi-purpose. One purpose is that at some point we will kill the animal and we will eat it. But there's also a secondary purpose, which is that it's meant to bear children. And nishchita, if we shecht the animal when we kill it, what does that show us? Huvrira de la'achila omedes. That clarifies the fact that I did shchita. What is the only purpose of doing shchita on Chullin? Is to eat it, right? Lo nishchita, if I did nechira, if I cut its head off with a sword, what then was retroactively, what then obviously was my mindset about the animal? It's not for food. It just must have been that Huvrira de lagadel omedes. So says the Gemara, therefore, we have a svara for Reb Yehuda. And it all works out kaftor beferach. Because it could be that the animal was legadil, and it could be that the animal was for lachila. We're good to go. We're good to go. Says the Gemara, major problem. Major problem. 5-6 lines from the bottom. Wait 1 second. The case that you just painted, Rava, which is that an animal is both amida le'achila and also amedes legadel, and we use brera to determine retroactively what your kavana was. If you do shchita, then it must be that retroactively your intent was for achila. If that's true, then that means you must hold of brera. But Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of brera. Says the Gemara, v'ha les leil Rabbi Yehuda brera. Oh, so then Rava, you can't say that this is the Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah. The Rabbi Yehuda that we're talking about over here. This Rabbi Yehuda about Hachana, it can't be because he doesn't hold a brera. Says the Gemara Minalan. How do we know the Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold a brera? We're going to see two answers. Ilema miditnan. We have a Mishnah. Halokeach yain mibein hakusim. If a person purchases wine from kusim, and we know that a kusi in this particular frame is treated as someone who's not careful with tvalim, he's not careful with trumas and maasros. So says the Gemara, he can make a condition. The guy drinking the wine, the yid who bought from the kusi, can make a condition. Omer, he can say as follows: Shnei lugin shani asid lahafrish harehin truma. I'm going to drink this now. I'm going to save the last two. Asara meiser rishon, tisha meiser sheni, umeichel. I'm going to say now what I'm going to leave over, and then I'll be meichel. I'll make it chulin, meaning it's not tevel anymore, and now I can drink it. V'sho semiyad, David Rav Meir. Rav Meir allows for brera. Rav Meir allows you to say now that these droplets I'm going to drink. The droplets that remain are the ones that will be trumos and maasros. So when do we determine which droplets are what? Only after you've consumed what you wanted. That's brera. Says Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Osrin. So we see that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of brera, of retroactive decision making. And if he doesn't hold of brera, then this house of cards just fell apart. Says the Gemara, no. You can't learn from the case of Lokeach Yain Mibein Akusim. Is that the language? Yeah. Well, you can't learn from there that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold the brera, top of your Daladamid base, because Hasam, in that case of the wine, Rashi, Taima, lav mishum de'en brerahu. It's not because Rabbi Yehuda holds that there's no brera. Rather, el dechayish l'shema yibaka hanod. There was a logistical concern that Rabbi Yehuda had that if I drink now and I save the last 10%, 20% for my trumas and maestros, what if I drink it now and then the bottle breaks and everything else spills out? Well, then I ate tevel, and that's a big problem. So says the Gemara back inside, Hasam, over there by the case of Lokeach Yain Mibein Akusim, K'tekatoni Taima, we actually have an express concern that's listed in the Gemara in Eruvin. Amru lo li Reb Meir. Reb Meir said it's mutter to do this, to say, oh, I'm going to drink it now and I'll be mafresh later. They argued back to him, Iyata modeh, shema yibaka hanod, v'nimsa shoset tfalin lemafreya. The reason why Rabbi Yehuda answered against Reb Meir wasn't because that he doesn't hold the brera. He had a very practical concern. I'm going to drink the first 85%. What if my leather pouch that's carrying the wine tears and all the wine drips out? Guess what? Then I drank food that was tevel because no trumos in my. Your intentions were good, but tachlis, what you drank retroactively was tevel. I'm not concerned about brera or no brera, says Rabbi Yehuda. I'm concerned that you may never end up being mafresh trumos and meisers. So this can't be a good source. And says the Gemara, Amar Lahen, what's Rav Meir's response to that? Lichashayibaka. Okay, so sometimes things break. What do you want me to do? My intentions were great. Rav Meir's not concerned that perhaps the bottle is going to break after I drink it and the Trumos and Maestros that should have been the Trumos and Maestros. He's not concerned about that. Okay, those things happen. What was your intention? My intentions were beautiful. It's like the halach of davar she'eino miskavin on Shabbos, a little shtickle, a tam of the same idea. So says the Gemara, what we see from the Gemara in Eruvin, this brisa that we just saw at the top of the page, indicates that the machlokes Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda was not about brera. Their machlokes was about something entirely different, which was what happens if Shema Yibaka Hanod. Rabbi Yehuda is concerned about that, so therefore he doesn't allow you to drink first and give later. Rav Meir is not concerned about that, and therefore he does allow you to drink first, but it's not because of brera. Says the Gemara, you're 100% right. So where then, we're on a little bit of a tangent, but where then do we see that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold the brera? Elamidatani Ayo. We have a brisa that was taught by Ayo. We are 4 lines down. Datani Ayo, this is a Gemara from Beitza and Eruvin and other places. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ein Adam Masne al Shnei Dvarim Ke'echad. Rabbi Yehuda says, you can't make a double condition. This was talking about a case in Eruvin dealing with Tchum Shabbos. The case is, reading the Gemara further, El im bachacham lemizrach eruvo lemizrach, lemarav eruvo lemarav. Let's say that I have 2,000 amos. A big Talmud Chacham is coming off to the east. A big Talmud Chacham is coming off to the west. And I can only go one direction. If the Talmud Chacham comes to the east and I put my new Tchum Shabbos, my new Eruv, 1,999 amos from my house, Givaldik, then I have another 2,000 to go. The Rav is 3,500 amos, Shalom Al Yisrael, I can go to the east. And I can do the same thing to the west. I can set myself up for success, but I can't go to both. I can't do both. I can only pick one. I have a 2,000 amos space here. You want me to extend to the east? No problem. Extend to the west? No problem. I just can't do both. So it says the Gemara as follows. Im bachacham lemizrach. If I find out on Shabbos morning, the Rav is in the shul, in the eastern shul. Givaldik. I'll walk there. Eruva lemizrach. Then the Eruv that I planted at the 1,999 amma marker is perfect. However, lemarav is also Eruvo, but I can't do both. Listen, be'ilu lekanu lekan. But according to the possibility of it being in both directions, lo, that doesn't work. V'havinanba, we ask, Rabbi Yehuda, I don't understand your shita. Ma'ishna lekanu lekandilo de'ein brera. Why was it, Rabbi Yehuda, that you said that when it came to the case of lekanu lekan, where we know there's a Rav in the east and in the west, we said you can't do that because de'ein brera. Guess what? If it's either Mizrach or Marav, Nami Ein Brera. So I don't understand, Rabbi Yehuda. How could you distinguish between a case of I don't know where the Rav is versus the case of I know that they're in both places, two Rabbanim? So says the Gemara of Amar Rav Yochanan Ukvar B'Chacham. One case was dealing with we already knew where the Chacham was, and the other case was not. One way or the other, we can actually not dig in too deep to Rav Yochanan's answer. What we see from here is that clearly Rav Yehuda holds in certain cases that there's Ein Brera. The case where he holds it is Kanu Lakan, where I live in the middle and I have my 2,000 amos. I want to set up over here at the edge of my Tchum 1,999 amos out of food so I can extend another 2,000. To the west, I want to do the same exact thing. But says the Gemara, that's not allowed because of Brera. So we see that he holds of Ein Brera. Now, what we really need to do is hold cup with what we're doing. We tried yesterday and today so far to provide the first answer to our question of how do we know the din of Rav that we said at the open of our Gemara in Yadalat and Aleph, that when the Mishnah says Shchitaso Kshera, it's kosher, you're just not allowed to eat it on Shabbos. And we said it's like Rabbi Yehuda, maybe it's because of Achana, You'll recall all the shakla v'tarya, that doesn't stand. So now 10, 12 lines down on your Dalet Amud Beis, we're going to see our second approach as to where we see that Rabbi Yehuda perhaps holds that the shechita would not be kosher on the day of the shechita. Good. Says the Gemara, Ella, what's our Mari Makom? The Rabbi Yehuda agrees with Rav. I should say that Rav has a Mari Makom on Rabbi Yehuda, that the food on the day of the shechita of our Mishnah, shechita sokshera, that it couldn't be eaten on that day. Ella Amar Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda the Kalim who? It's a Rabbi Yehuda in regards to the halachos of Kalim. Titnan, we have a Mishnah in Maseches Shabbos. Kol ha-Kalim ha-nitlin b'Shabbos. Any kli that's usable on Shabbos, shivrehen nitlin, if it breaks, then their pieces can be used. Ubilvad sheyehu osen me'ein malacha, provided that they should be usable for some type of use. Shivre areva, if you have broken pieces of an areva is a mixing bowl. So then what can I do with that? Leftasos ba pichavis, if the pieces are the right size, they can close or cover the actual spigot opening of a bottle. Like I guess a cork of some kind. We wouldn't put glass in our drinks. These are bigger shards. So it says that's fine. Shivrei zechuchis, if I have broken glass, not broken earthenware, lechasos ben piapach, I can use it to cover a different kind of container, mutter b'mutter. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no. Ubilvad sheyehu osin me'ein malachton. It has to be only for the same exact purpose as the original kli. Now, the Tanakama held, I don't care what you use it for as long as it's functional. Rabbi Yehuda says, I need it to be functional. That means like this. Shivrei areva, if you have the parts of a kli that used to be part of a mixing bowl, latzuk lesochan mikpa. It has to be that it's like, let's say, a larger chunk that can be used for dough, for a thick type of, that's fine. And shivrei zechuches, what if it's made out of glass? There has to be enough of the kli that's left, latzuk lesochan shemen. Me'ein melachton in. What does Rabbi Yehuda hold? What are the shivrei kalim? When are they allowed? Only if they're me'ein melachton. They're for their original use. If it was a mixing bowl, it has to be used to hold items that are mixed. But me'ein melacha acheres lo. But if something breaks, something changes status, the original intent is gone, then Rabbi Yehuda says no. Now here's where we come into play here. Alma, says the Gemara halfway down, Kevan delo itchin me esmol lahach melacha asirei. When we say that like the Mishnah says in Maseches Shabbos Kuf Chav Daled, that kol hakelim nitlin b'Shabbos and shivreim nitlin as well, but that's only true if they were for the same purpose. So kevan delo ischan me esmol lahach, since it's the case that the shivrei kalim were not prepared for a new purpose on Shabbos, only for the old. That's why Rabbi Yehuda says it can only be used for the same purpose. But if it's not that way, then it's asur. Hachanami in our Mishnah too. Kevan delo ischan me esmo, since the animal was not shechted before Shabbos. So when you shecht it, the function of the animal is different now, and therefore asura, just like the shivrei kalim. So therefore, we have answer number 2. We rejected answer number 1 about hachana, although we're doing something quite similar in speaking about whether it was muchan, just a different lens, a different example, and that's what the Gemara recommends is the answer of Rabbi Yehuda. Amar le Abaye. Abaye says again, Abaye and Rava, constant banter. Abaye says, Midami, your comparison of our Mishnah of shchita on Shabbos or Yom Kippur, and comparing it to kol hakelim hanitlin b'Shabbos are not comparable. Hasam, the case that you brought, the Mishnah from Shabbos Kuf Chav Daled, Hasam me'ikara kli v'hashta sheber kli v'havalei nolad v'aser. This is very interesting. If you have a kli and you break it into, or it breaks, I should say, into 1,000 pieces, you no longer have a kli. You have new items. It's nolad. It's not what it was before. It used to be a kli. Now it's shivrei kalim. So therefore, that's nolad. But hacha, in our case, that's not what happened. Hacha, by the Mishnah, me'ikara uchla, ulevisof ochel, just that uchla de ifrasu. By us, it was a cow, and now it's a cow that's cut into pieces. So let's make our comparison. We had a kli, it fell on the floor, now it's shivrei kelim. Is that similar to a cow that is now shechted and turned into a ribeye? No, no. In the second case of the Mishnah, it used to be a cow, and now it's a better cow. By the shivrei kelim, it used to be a united vessel, now it's in pieces. Says Abaye, those are not the same things. Those cases are not comparable. Sorry, nice try, but I'm just not agreeing with you. Says the Gemara, let's see if Rabbi Yehuda in fact holds that animal that's cut up is just considered to be pieces of the larger animal. That's not. We have another Mishnah from Maseches Beitza. Ein sochten es haperos lahotzi mehen mashken. We know that there is an iser with certain vegetables, which is specifically anovim, zaysim ve'anovim. There's an iser de oraisa to do shchita. With all other fruits and vegetables, there's an iser derabanan to do shchita. There are a few exceptions to the rule. One of the famed exceptions to the rule is squeezing, let's say, a lemon directly onto a food, not into a liquid. You may not squeeze a lemon into tea. You can squeeze a lemon onto sugar and put the sugar into the tea. You may not put it straight into a liquid. We're not going to get into the sugya now. But we do know there's an Isser de Oraisa of squeezing Zaysim Va'anovim, an Isser de Rabbanon of everything else, and Mutter in certain cases. There's also, I just got a question today from an old Talmud. She asked a brilliant question. She said, I have very curly hair. I'm trying to keep Hilchos Shabbos with my hair. She said, how much water can I put in my hair before I'm going to violate Schita? I'm like, I don't know how to go get a cup of water and dump it on your head and see what happens. I have no idea. You have to test your own hair. I can't do schita on my hair. It's not an option. Maybe Bekoshi on the front. Fine. Okay, let's continue. So the Mishnah says that we're not allowed to do schita on peiros to lahotzi mehen mashkin. V'im yatsu me atzman. What if you didn't do anything? What if it happened on its own? Let's say I have a bowl in my fridge holding grapes. And God forbid, should I have grapes in my fridge that long that they should turn into wine? That would be problematic. But let's say that it happened, and now I have grape juice. So says the Gemara, V'im yatzame atzman asurin. Look at Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, im le'ochlen. If the food that we're talking about was meant to be eaten, and then yatsu me'atzman hayotze mehen mutter. What does that show you? He holds that the derivative of a food is just like the food, provided that it's an ochel, exactly like we saw from Abaye. However, the im lemashkin, if, says Rabbi Yehuda, if the fruit was intended for its liquid, so then I don't agree. Then I would not say that hayotze mehen would be aser. Says the Gemara, lav itmar Allah, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mar Shmuel, modahaya Rabbi Yehuda l'chachamim b'salei zeisem ve'anovim. He holds that Rabbi Yehuda agrees to the Chachamim when it comes to Saleh Zaysim Ve'anovim. He agrees with them that it's going to be completely asur, even if it was for food. Alma, Kevin de l'schita kaime, since these fruits of grapes and olives are meant to be squeezed, yoiv daite. Obviously, that must have been his intention, that it was going to be for schita. Hachanami in our Mishnah. Kevan de l'shchita kaima yoiv daite. Since this animal will soon be shechted, obviously his das is that it should be shechted. So we see this principle that really it's uchla de ifrasu, that it's the same thing. Says the Gemara, midihu taima ela l'rav. Wait 1 second. You're trying to say that we follow this Rabbi Yehuda, but we have a problem. If you look back on our Mishnah, right after our Mishnah begins the Gemara, the line of the Gemara when it says Asura be'achila liyoma, who authored that line? Rav. Okay, so says the Gemara now. The problem with what you just said is Ha'amar Rav chaluk haya Rabbi Yehuda afilu b'salei zeisim b'anovim. He doesn't agree to the presentation of our Gemara. Rav holds that the brisa was different. That Rabbi Yehuda argued with the Chachamim in the case of the salei zeisim b'anovim, and therefore no raya from him, and we reject answer number 2. This second approach of trying to find Rabbi Yehuda does not work. Let's dig into the third and final answer for the evening, which will take us halfway down on Tes Vav Amud Aleph. Elamar of Sheshes, or Sheshes says, or Sheshes brother of Idi, Rabbi Huda de Nerosi. This is the Rabbi Huda who's talking about some type of lantern type of, we're not talking about Hadlakas Neros. We're talking about like a lamp. So if you can imagine like the genie lamp, right? There's an opening on the right side, oil goes in, and there's an extension with a little hole in the wick. So the wick sticks out, and there's a wick goes inside. It draws from the oil, like the old. We've seen these before. So says the Gemara, that's our case. He says we're talking about Nerosi. Tanya, we have a brisa in Maseches Shabbos Memdalid, Metaltalin Ner Chadash. If you have a brand new lantern, you can move it on Shabbos. However, avalo yashan, you're not allowed to move a yashan one. Divrei Reb Yehuda. We need to see Rashi here because it's completely unclear as to how this connects to our Gemara. So let's look at Rashi, second to the last line. Dibur hamaschil ner chadash. Ner chadash, Rashi says, shelo hidliku bo me'olam. Ner shel cheres, it is made out of pottery. Ukshehu chadash, chazi lemirme be pere. There's other uses for it. You can put blueberries in it. You can put little fruits and vegetables in it. It's perfect. Aval lo yashan. Once the pottery lantern has been used, we don't use it. Why? Demuksahu machmas mius. Shadas kotebo. It's gross. It's drippy. It's covered in oil. It's disgusting. I mean, it's functional. We use it. But now, if obviously it can't be in use on Shabbos because you're not allowed to move a lantern on Shabbos. But if you have this cheres ner and it's been used already, a yashan is not allowed to be used. Now look, this is us. The hach behemonami. This is we would not have known how to understand this without Rashi. The hach behemonami, our Mishnah. Shekidesh hayom he muksa machmas. Need to add the word iser aver minachai shelo nishchata. He says, what is an animal before it's shechted? It's aser because of aver minachai. It's muksa machmas aver minachai. Somebody's going to say, maybe I should get a dog. Your animal's muksa machmas aver minachai. According to the way Rashi is explaining this, right? So it says the Gemara, why? Shelo nishchata. Now, dogs are actually not applicable to this because shechting a dog won't change very much. It's not edible. They might be muksa for other reasons, perhaps. There's been a spate of people getting dogs. It's quite a bit. I have heard I asked Rabbi Robinson about it. Not myself, I'm not getting a dog, but I asked Rabbi Robinson about it. I'm like, my huh? He's like, yeah, it's difficult. He said there is apparently one shita that dogs are so remarkably domesticated that it's not really what Chazal intended, but that's not the stam reading of the Shulchan Aruch. Stam reading of the Shulchan Aruch is that animals are muksa. It causes a lot of problems. What if you have a dog? If you're in a place where there's no eruv, you're holding a leash. Are you really holding a leash? Can you touch the dog? Can you move? These are big shilas. These are big shilas in poskim. Good. So what do we see from here back in the Gemara? Avalo Yashan Dibi Rabbi Yehuda. Now Rashi made a tzushtel from the case of Yashan to teach us that there's a similar idea by our Mishnah. It's not found in the Gemara. The Gemara doesn't say this. Now let's see what he says here. Eimar deshamas leila Rabbi Yehuda b'muksamach mas mius. I agree that maybe he would say that by the case of the cheres, which is Yashan, that there's mius. But how did you get from muksa machmas mius to muksa machmas iser? But muksa machmas iser mishamas le. Rashi explained what the Gemara meant. That's a big jump. You're telling me that the lantern is covered in oil and it's disgusting. Mela, I understand that. That's like saying, can you, we have a nasty part of our house, whatever, there's like a filthy space where there's oil and grease. Thank God my house doesn't have this. But if I did, what would you can't touch that on Shabbos? Muksa machmas mius. You're going to compare that to an animal that's muksa machmas iser aver minachai? Come on, that jump is way too big, says the Gemara. The Gemara responds, not true. Says the Gemara, Mishama slave. Would really Rabbi Yehuda also agree to muksa machmas iser? Says the Gemara in, absolutely he would. Where do we see this? Titnan. We actually, I think it's a Titania. Yeah, it's a Titania. We have a Brisa. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kol Neros Shel Mateches Metaltalin. Whenever we have a metal kli, it's carried. Chutz min haner shehid likubo beoso Shabbos. Except for a case where there was a ner that was lit that Shabbos. Rashi, Hadolek b'Shabbos, a little bit of a different language, but it meant to be the same thing. Shahayaner dolek bo ben hashmashos dehuk samachmas iser she'aser lechabos haner. This is metal. It doesn't get as dirty as cheres. Why is it aser? Because it was lit before Shabbos started. So we see that Rabbi Yehuda does hold that there's muksa machmas iser. If he holds that there's muksa machmas iser, then that is why, going back to our Mishnah, answer number 3 of our Gemara for Rabbi Yehuda, that's why we say that Rabbi Yehuda is the author of our Mishnah. Why is it that the shchita is kshera but aser bo bayom, like Rav says? Because it's muksa machmas iser. Says the Gemara, the dilma shiny hasam dahabidachile biodayim. Maybe that case is different because it's dachile biyadayim. What does dachile biyadayim mean? Rashi, the 4th line, divar mascha biyadayim, shehidlig bo haner, aval behema demimele midchia ema dehadar chazia. I could make a distinction in cases of muksa machmas iser. When it comes to the case of muksa machmas iser, that's because you lit it. But the cow, I didn't do anything. He's usher on his own. It's Eber min achai. So it says the Gemara, even if you want to say, the way Rashi explained the Gemara on the bottom of your Daladam and Beis, even if you want to say, yeah, there's a link between, muksa machmas mius and muksa machmas iser, that's fine. But they're within muksa machmas iser, some are dachile biadayim and some are memela. The case of the ner is dachile biadayim. You lit it. You made it usher by lighting it. Before you lit it, it wasn't usher. You could have moved it. But when you lit that candle before Shabbos, you made it usher. But the behema, you didn't touch the animal. The animal was all by his lonesome, Eber min achai. You did nothing. Literally, you did nothing. So says the Gemara, I'm sorry, your answer doesn't hold up. Doesn't hold up. So we still don't have our Rabbi Yehuda. Let's move on to the 4th and final answer of how to understand our Gemara. Ela Amar Ravashi, Rabbi Yehuda de Mevashelhi. This is one of the most well-known Mara Mekomos in Maseches Shabbos, and Shilas come up about this probably every single week. The Tanya. We have a Brisa, a well-known Gemara found in Bava Kama, Gittin, Beitza Trumos, Ksubis, Shabbos, all over the map. This is a big one. Hamevashel b'Shabbos. Rachmana litzlan, a person cooks on Shabbos, if it's b'shogeg yochal. Okay, I didn't know it was Shabbos and I cooked, or some other form of shogeg. I didn't know. So then the halacha is yochal. You're allowed to eat it. This is all Reb Meir. But b'mezid lo yochal. However, if you cooked on purpose, the halacha is you should not eat that food. Divrei Reb Meir. Let's look at our Rabbi Yehuda now. Remember, we need Rabbi Yehuda, and we need him to indicate, like our Mishnah, that you can't eat this during the day. And perhaps this is the link, that when there's bishul, Rabbi Yehuda will hold that it's not allowed to be eaten during the day. So here we go. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, b'shogeg yochal lemotzei Shabbos. If you cook b'shogeg on Shabbos, when are you allowed to eat the food? Motzei Shabbos. By the way, isn't that exactly what we're looking for? What does Rav say in the Gemara? Asura be'achila liyoma. So Rabbi Yehuda, within being a shogeg, holds that it's asur on Shabbos, but mutter after Shabbos givaldik. But b'mezid lo yochal olamis. Rabbi Yehuda is more machmir than the Tanna Kama, and he holds that if you cook b'mezid, that food is never edible. Rabbi Yochanan Asanlar takes it further. Rabbi Yochanan Asanlar b'shogeg yochal lemotzei Shabbos only le'acherim, but vilolo. On Shabbos, if you cook b'shogeg, the food's edible for others after Shabbos, but you who were the mevashel, you're done for. But b'mezid, says Rabbi Yochanan Asanlar, if you cooked on purpose, lo yochal olamis lo lo v'lo le'acherim. No one is allowed to eat this food. So What matches here to our Gemara is Rabbi Yehuda, who says that if you cook b'shogeg, it's aser on Shabbos and it's mutter b'motzei Shabbos. Says the Gemara, I mean, that's one shita that works, but there are others. The nukma b'mezid v'Reb Meir. Let's look at Reb Meir. What does Reb Meir say? Hamavashel b'Shabbos b'mezid lo yochal. Why can't that be our Mishnah, that you don't eat this food? Says the Gemara, lo sal kadaitach. We are not able to even think that Reb Meir is the option. Why? Because says the Gemara, Diktani, our Mishnah makes an equation, makes a hekesh between Dumya de Yom Kippurim, between Shabbos and Yom Kippur. If you look back at our Mishnah, what does it say? Hashochet b'Shabbos ubi Yom Kippurim. So says the Gemara, ubi Yom? Yes. Why doesn't it say obi Yom Kippurim? Shochet b'Shabbos, whatever. Says the Gemara, why can't it be Rav Meir? Lo sal kadai dekatani dumya de Yom Kippurim. Ma Yom Kippurim lo shna b'shogeg v'lo shna b'mezid lo achil. By Yom Kippur, we don't care if there's a difference between shogeg and mezid. You're not allowed to eat the food. Af hachanami lo shna b'shogeg v'lo shna b'mezid lo achil. So therefore, it can't be Rav Meir, because Rav Meir allows for the achila when it's b'shogeg. That doesn't match with the hekesh between Shabbos and Yom Kippur. Says the Gemara, fine. So you want to tell me that Rabbi Yehuda is the author of our Mishnah, and he holds that it was a case of shogeg, and when you do the iser b'shogeg of shchita on Shabbos, you're not allowed to eat it on Shabbos, but you can eat it afterwards. But we have a major problem with that. What's true about a shogeg? Do you get kares if you do a din b'shogeg? No way. Umi matis mukmas la b'shogeg Rabbi Yehuda. You want to say that our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda when he says b'shogeg, that it's lo yochal b'Shabbos but yud b'motzei Shabbos? V'ha, what does our Mishnah say? Afal pishem ischay b'nafsho ktani. You can't say that our Mishnah is a case of shogeg. Because if you do, then our Mishnah can't say you're mischayev benafsho. And Rashi on our Mishnah on Yudal and Aleph said, mischayev kares. There is no kares b'shogeg. You bring a chatas b'shogeg. There's no kares. There is no way to understand our Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda with shchita b'shogeg if our Mishnah says that the slap on the wrist is not a chatos but kares. Says the Gemara, 100% right. Achi tani, achi kamar. This is the way to understand it. It says the Gemara, Afal pi dibemezid mischayv benafshohu hacha dibeshogeg shlitasok sheir. This is a stretch within the words of our Mishnah, but it is what it seems to say. There's actually a footnote on the side that kind of broadens the text a little bit. We're not going to go into it, but that is how the Gemara understands that. Really, don't worry, we can still shtup in Rabbi Yehuda shita that it's beshogeg. Says the Gemara, fine, but why don't we understand our Mishnah not like Rabbi Yehuda? V'nukma, perhaps we're halfway down on Tesvav Menaf, almost done for the day, just 3 more lines. V'nukma ki Rav Yochanan Asanlar, damar loshna b'shogeg v'loshna b'mezid lo achil. Why don't we say that our Mishnah is like Rav Yochanan, who says you're not allowed to eat the food? In either case, he says you're not allowed to eat the food. So says the Gemara, Rav Yochanan Asanlar, kamaflig b'motzei Shabbos la'acherim v'lolo. Because Rav Yochanan Asanlar makes a distinction on Motzei Shabbos between the person who did the cooking, who's never allowed to eat, and Acherim, who are allowed to eat. Says the Gemara, Tana Didan, but our Mishnah doesn't stem with Rav Yochanan Asanlar. Why? Because our Mishnah says, Shchita sok shera, Ktani, lo shna, lo, lo shna, lo, v'lo shna la'acherim. So it can't be Rav Yochanan Asanlar, because Rav Yochanan Asanlar distinguishes between the Avarian and everybody else. The Avarian's never allowed to eat it, and everybody else is allowed to eat it. So therefore, our Mishnah cannot be like that. Therefore, it must be that our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda b'shogeg with that taich of the Mishnah. And if you look back at our Mishnah in Yudal and Aleph, it reads like this: Hashochet b'Shabbos of Yom Kippurim. Afal pi, that had he done it b'mezid, he would have been mischayev b'nafsho. But if he did it b'shogeg, it would be aser on that day in shchitasok shera. Okay, we'll stop right here at Tani Tana Kame Derav, and Amir Hashem will pick up on Shabbos. I have no idea what time Daf Yomi is, but probably in the mid-6s. We'll pause right here. Wishing you all a beautiful night.